does he help you with?
Yeah, Nihua is a newcomer to my team. Of course, he come up with many new ideas in opening. Also, he share a lot of stories. She had very good memories.
You had a draw today. You got a little bit for white, but not a whole lot. But you came down the escalator in a really good spirits. You're in very good spirits now. So tell us why you're so happy today.
Maybe today I drink a lot of water and have some snacks. Like, because the last game I didn't ever drink a little bit any water. So today the food makes me happy.
All right, well, there you go. It's important to stay hydrated even at a world championship. Ding Lijian, thanks as always for your time.
All right, so that was game number 4, and I think the moment that strikes me there is when Richard Rapport and Nihua get to the playing hall. Dingley Ren marches in, and then it's like they get turned around, like they arrived at a nightclub in shorts and the bouncers said no. But that was absolutely hilarious. They were still smiling, they were laughing as they exited the playing hall as well. You can tell that the entire team has a really good relationship with each other. And Judith, maybe you can shed some insight here. Obviously, the seconds are there to provide opening insight, to think of how to strategize to win the match, but ultimately the personal relationships within the team actually make a huge difference.
Seconds are very, very important, and this is what we've seen in every World Championship match. And I think for Dingley Ren, it's important what kind of ideas the seconds are giving, and it was nice to hear that he said newcomer to the team with new ideas. So, but I've seen that also new energies are coming, and that's very important because what the players are playing on the board, as we've seen, it does matter, but it's only part of it. It's very important how the players feel physically, mentally, and what kind of energy they get during the whole event, but also when they come to the game. So you can see when the player has a lot of energy, self-confidence, with the real presence there. And I think this may bring some new energy, positive energy to Ding.
I think energy is going to be a theme of today. Before we went on air, Robert, we were talking about the energy of the players at the press conferences and what we could infer from that, sort of from day number 1 through to now. Obviously, that doesn't completely influence what moves are played over the chessboard, but what have you been able to glean from that?
Well, Ding, in the press conferences, he seems quite subdued, sometimes even seemingly sad. But what we just saw in that interview is talking about Richard Rapport, that brings a smile to his face. So in the press conferences, the players are exhausted. They just played a taxing game. And then I guess off to the side, perhaps Ding is experiencing different emotions. And the value of seconds, just to reiterate what Judith said, it is so important to the players because they bring the energy, they bring the mood, and they also bring plenty of great chess ideas.
So let's take a look now, scene setting a little bit for the start of round number 5. We're actually going to be heading over to Mike Klein, who earlier today decided to enter from the air. Let's see what he's talking about.
Well, there are many ways to reach Sentosa Island for the 2024 World Championship, but today we're arriving in style. We're on the gondola on a rare sunny day in what is otherwise a very rainy season in Singapore. But what about the chess? This is where the mind games begin in round 5, because recall, in Gukesh's third turn as white, he's going to have to figure out, can he go back to e4 or will he keep with d4? That's what got him his win in game 3 after going down against the French defense in game 1. And if he does stay with d4, we have a new helper on Ding's team. Ding did promise us that we would find out about his second, and we did that yesterday. Grandmaster Nihua made an appearance and is officially on Team Ding. We also had our first public appearance of Richard Rapport. He scrapped the fun shirts from last year. Now he has the fun shorts. So a fun little side story to see whether or not he keeps wearing some colorful attire each round. Going to be fascinating to see. Ding has become a real man of the people. Recall that between last year's World Championship and this year, he's actually played 7 decisive games of the 11 rounds in the first half of his 2 World Championship matches, so don't even be surprised if he goes for a win as black today. All remains to be seen. We're going to enjoy the rest of our ride on the gondola over to Sentosa Island.
Thank you very much for that, Mike. It's rare that you get a chess venue that you get to arrive at via gondola, but lots of fun and games to be had in Singapore. Obviously, less so for the players who are going to be completely focused on the game today. I want to start by being a little bit spicy, folks, and having a chat with you about what result we think is going to happen today. Robert, we've had a win for each side and 2 draws. The tension is mounting. After today, we'll be over a third of the way through. Is today the decisive breakthrough? Or are we going to keep the tension going?
Oh, such a good question, John. When Ding has the black pieces, it seems like we get those combative games. Ding won with black in game 1. Gukesh struck back in game 3 when Gukesh had the white pieces. So once again, white pieces for Gukesh. You can't just assume that we will have a quiet affair. So I think it's good chances, if history tells us anything, that we will have a decisive game today.
All right. And Judith, do you agree with that assessment? Is today the day someone's going to be striking?
Well, I'm really, really happy that that's how Robert thinks. And I think there is a good chance that we see a decisive game, especially seeing that the first 2 games where Gukesh played with white, it was the case. I'm expecting a very sharp game. And the question is how Gukesh is ready. Like, he really wants to take the lead, I think. I think it depends also on the opening, what we're going to see. That matters a lot. I hope for a decisive game.
All right. So everyone with their fingers crossed. I mean, we've had 2 decisive games, both of them when Gukesh has had the white pieces and Ding Liren has had the black pieces. So very, very possible it could happen today. But it's not just about our opinion here on the desk. It's also about your opinion back home as well. You can get involved using Vote Chess. So if you go to the chess.com events page and you click on the Fide World Championship, you'll be able to navigate to games and click on today's game. And once you go into today's game, you should see a box in the top right-hand corner, possibly underneath our screen if we're live at the time. And that is social. And underneath social, you'll be able to vote for whether you think you will get a white win, a black win, or a draw for today's game. Now, it's not just about letting us know who you think is going to win. That's great as well. You also have the opportunity to win prizes as a direct result. 20 people will win very tangible prizes as a result of a Vote Chess today. So get your vote in and you could be winning $400 worth of Chessable course vouchers, which is quite a lot. And we're giving that away every single day of the championships, folks. So make sure to go to the chess.com/events page and log in and register your vote. You could be one of these winners. It's not just the one prize as well. Remember, 20 people will get something every day from this. Best of luck to you all. And do let us know in chat, whether you're here on Twitch or YouTube, what you think is going to happen. As you can see now, we're getting ready in the playing hall now. Maurice Ashley getting ready to introduce the players and the ceremonial first moves, as is custom before the start of each round. Ding Liren already sat at the board, and Gukesh, oh, there we go, not too far behind. Let's do a little bit of superficial reading into body language, Robert, because we love all of this unfounded speculation. It's fantastic. How are we feeling about the demeanor of both of the players today? Can you read anything into this so far?
For me, it's always the difference in the size of their chairs. Like, Gukesh sits down, he towers over Ding because his chair is so large, and Ding's just like, I want that comfy lower back, so I'm just going to settle in here. But no, John, it's hard to read anything by body language. They both seem ready for what's going to be a great fight.
Fide World Championship.
All right, let's hop to the introductions.
Presented by Google. Held here at the Aquarius Hotel at the luxurious Resorts World Sentosa here in beautiful Singapore. I'm Maurice Ashley, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the 2 players who are competing for the title of World Chess Champion. First, the challenger from India, Gukesh Damaraju. And the world champion from China, Ding Liren. The match is currently tied at 2 points apiece. The players have been playing incredible chess, fighting chess. Fans all around the world are following. And now that we have the first weekend of the event, then even more fans will be tuning in. Now, the host country of Singapore has been a fantastic host indeed. It is known for its remarkably low crime rate and is often cited as one of the safest cities in the world. However, the country has a popular catchphrase: low crime doesn't mean no crime. It has implemented stringent laws and effective law enforcement strategies that contribute to public safety and social order. The commitment to maintaining a safe environment allows residents and visitors alike to enjoy the city with peace of mind, making it an ideal backdrop for events such as this one that promote community engagement and intellectual pursuits. Today, we have a special guest to make the ceremonial first move. He has served in the Singapore cabinet since 2008. Before entering the cabinet, he had a distinguished career in legal practice, where he held the esteemed title of Senior Counsel of the Supreme Court of Singapore. A passionate chess enthusiast, he is the Minister of Home Affairs and Minister of Law of Singapore. Please welcome K. Shanmugam. Please. And with that, let the game begin.
All right. Well, we do get E4 on the board, so hopefully we get to see some fun stuff out of the opening today. We might even get some early fireworks. We'll wait and see. We've got a French once again, a potential repeat of game number 1. Judith, Robert, I leave it over to you fine folk for the opening section of this game. Take it away.
Thank you so much, John. We do see a French defense. And Judith, I don't even need to see you to probably guess that the exchange French defense was not going to be on your radar for today's match, because that has a reputation for being quite tame. So Judith, pawns have been exchanged in the center, a repeat of game 1 in terms of the French defense trotted out by Ding. What do you make of what we're seeing just 4 moves in?
I'm just speechless, to tell you the truth. I just couldn't believe my eyes when I see this e takes d5 capturing in the center. It's like, what is this? It's game 5. The energy, the way Gukesh came into the playing hall, it was so clear to me that now it's going to be the time. It's going to be sharp. And he goes e takes d5. It is so much not Gukesh.
I'm also, Judith, trying to come up with an explanation, maybe unhappy memories of the first game's result?
No, but this is not how 18 years olds are dealing with something that, especially after that he leveled the match, right? I mean, this is the biggest shock of the match so far for me. Like, what does Gukesh want to prove with that? Taking 3 e takes d5. Can you imagine now it's going to be the new style, the new fashion to play e takes d5 because Gukesh, the challenger, he played that. Especially if he would win the game today, it would be the new fashion.
And I see what you're saying, Judah. The youngster playing what's often called a drush, I'm putting that in quotes, opening, but it is far from just a done deal. There will be plenty of game ahead, and it kind of resembles a Petrov defense. But as we look at the position as it currently stands, we have symmetrical pawn structure, right? There was a capture on d5, black captured back. Black is going to be that tempo behind because white moves first in the game. So we see that white has 2 minor pieces developed, black just 1 at the moment. But I think now would be a good time if we can, because Ding may settle in just to anticipate what Gukesh wants. And as soon as I say that, he makes a move. And oh, wait, it stopped on c6 for a second and then went up to c5. So this is the principled reply, Judith, where Ding, he is striking in the center. So I will hold what I was going to say for a moment. What do you make of Ding's choice now to immediately press in the center rather than playing just a tamer approach?
Very interesting way, the way he's approaching, and I don't think that Ding could be expecting e takes d5 today. But I mean, of course, it can be an interesting game. Don't misunderstand me that I think that it's going to be a draw in 15 moves. It cannot be a draw in 15 moves. But it is very unexpected for me that Gukesh went to this direction to steer it to very moderate, very solid positional game for the moment. Of course, later on, I think we are going to see an isolated pawn. White is going to capture on c5. But it is a very interesting and unexpected strategy, the way I understand Gukesh. Maybe also this is the exact reason he took on d5, because everybody was expecting that he's going to come out and make it as sharp as possible. But one thing is sure for me, that this game 5, Gukesh again made a surprise to his opponent.
Gukesh winning the opening battle, so to speak, because he is the one with the shock value. And whoa, okay, c4, that's quite a committal move in these structures, because if you look at the base of pawn chains, that's often how we try to understand how strong pawns are. The d5 pawn is the base of a chain with c4 after that. That pawn not defended by another. White's pawn structure very healthy, and white can often crack at that pawn chain with a move like b3. It's not like c4 is this overly committal decision that Gukesh or Ding are going to say, oh, it changes the nature of the game completely, but it does release the tension, Judith, and that means that when we see pawn chains, white often wants to operate in the direction of the pawn chain, heading towards the king side, and in some future, black may operate in the direction of this little mini pawn chain with b5, b4, and some queenside expansion.
Absolutely, you're correct. That I mean, black can have a very nice position on the queen side if that will be allowed by white. At the same time, we see both bishops on c1 and c2, which can be very powerful, looking towards the king side. So after black would be castling, that could be somewhere white is looking for initiative. Queen e2 check.
Judith, I heard the word initiative, and then I saw queen e2, which invites queen e7 with a queen trade on tap. But I do think that Ding may spend some time here if he has not already studied this position. And I think we should bring up an analysis board for the first time today, because queen e7 is the move you make if you think that, oh, I'll just trade queens. It should be equal. And again, I'm putting that in air quotes, Judith, because how many times have even the best players in the world made this mistake? They've been lulled into a sense of complacency. They think, okay, queen e7 and we are equal. But after queen e7 and a trade on e7, you already have one of these decisions. Do I take with the king? No, I want to take with the bishop on e7. But white is first to the only open file. And the small pluses in chess, they could have big consequences. So I think anyone would prefer to have the white side in this position. But how much is this little advantage? Can it grow? Can it become nagging? And would black be able to hold steady?
Well, it seems like Ding is not necessarily very happy about this queen e2 check, and it's a good question what Ding is going to be playing, because queen e7 is the most natural move to make, and I think bishop e6 is not something black wants, because then knight g5 can be on the board, and the white square bishop will be eliminated. So white has a very pleasant position at first. If and otherwise, what else black can do, right? Queen e7 is on the board.
Dude, bishop e6, I think, is technically playable, but clearly that's what Gukesh would have wanted because and king takes e7. I was going to say there is this alternative of king takes and keeping the king in the center. We are entering a queenless middle game, and that means that you can then swing this rook to e8 quite quickly and castle by hand, king back to f8. So, Judah, I see the surprise on your face. I know you already stated as much, but this opening, if you told me this was Magnus Carlsen playing, I would totally believe you. He loves these little advantages on paper and then maximizing his chances. But I think we expected more ambition, at least from a tactical perspective, from Gukesh, and he has just completely thrown that in the water and said, let's get technical from the start.
Yes, I'm continuously trying to understand what is really going on here with behind Gukesh's choice. What is it that was there any game he saw by Dingley Ren or any of his seconds that he knew exactly that this is the idea c5 c4 very quickly pushing the pawn, that it is someone's idea and he was hoping for this position because he has some interesting idea here that he wants to be trying out, or was it a strategy before the match started, or did they work out with Gaevsky and his team, Gukesh's team, that they are going to be making e takes d5, just shock the world by playing this and trying to play very solid. So it's I'm still trying to figure out what is behind this choice, because it is also not very much in the style of Gukesh. At the same time, of course, when you are already so much, he does have quite an experience, Gukesh, even though he's very young. He's playing also for the World Championship title match. And it means that no matter what kind of style you have to be a very rounded player, and you have to understand all kind of positions, all type of positions to be able to win a title. That's very clear. And maybe this is what Gukesh wants, that he wants to try out different things, and he wants to try out what he believes in. And sometimes it's going without queens into middle game with some strategic ideas. But I'm very curious, for example, how much is he going to be thinking here? Though we got to this position very fast, which is also quite surprising for me.
Well, Judith, I think initially believed that Gukesh was the one who surprised Ding, but look at this featured chat beneath the board. Anish also gives king takes e7 in his chessable course. So for those of you doing your homework, always researching how to improve your variations, Anish Giri, one of the most prominent opening theoreticians and one of the best players in the world, of course, he recommends king takes in the center at this early stage. And that means that Ding Liren likely prepared this variation. He's the one playing the French defense. And Gukesh, just a minute ago, Judy, he was staring away from the board. Then he went back to full concentration mode, trying to figure out what to do next. But that means that Ding Liren likely played practice games, has studied this, and maybe it's Ding who won the opening battle despite the position being queenless. And I think that White shouldn't be too unhappy. It's not like he's in any danger.
Well, I think king e7 is the move which is a very logical move, and the reason is because the rook is coming out from the corner to e8, and then king can go back to f8, and it's very optimal position set up for black. Even the king is standing better on f8 than its castling place on g8, and obviously we don't have to prove that the rook on e8 on the open file will be standing perfectly fine. And also it's very important that the d6 bishop is standing there and did not have to move back to e7, because in these positions the e5 square is key. And usually there is a fight over the e5 square. If white can stabilize the knight on e5, jumping there, and play rook e1, sometimes bring the other knight, knight d2 and f3, then white can get a little advantage. If white cannot reach the knight to go to e5, then black will develop with knight c6, also with the bishop to g4. And if black can develop all with his pieces, and then later on, as you mentioned before, playing b5, pushing pawns on the queen side, black can have a fantastic position. But of course, it's not so easy. White is going to be making moves. And this is now also it's a big question whether white is going to be giving rook e1 check and asking black whether do you want to go move away with the king, and then we exchange the rooks, and then there will be a lot of time until black will be able to bring the other rook to e8, because he still has to develop with both of his pieces beforehand with the b8 knight and the c8 bishop. So white will be faster, bringing out the bishop to g5, bringing out the knight to d2, and bring the rook to e1. So that can speed up white's development if he can play rook e1 exchanging the rooks. And if black goes bishop e6, then we are there again where we talked before the exchange of queens, that white can always go knight g5, attacking the bishop on e6 and eliminate that. So rook e1 is the crucial move right now, I believe, though bishop g5 also makes a lot of sense to pin the knight on f6, with an idea later to play rook e1 and possibly take on f6 and double the pawns.
I feel like I just learned a ton from all of the ideas that you were mentioning. And I think that everybody at home, if you are trying to improve your own chess, you sit in a position like this and you think not just what individual move that each side should make. White could bring a knight to e5, can play rook e1 check, potentially offering an exchange of rooks, can play bishop g5, can play pawn to b3. All of these moves, they make a lot of sense, but try to sit and sort of assess where the game should go and then start playing it out. And let's play it out here. We can bring up an analysis board as Gukesh. He is trying to figure out his own plan. You mentioned rook e1 check and the fact that the rook on a8 will be slow to get back in the center. If I was understanding you correctly, that's sort of the first notion that comes to your mind is rook check, then try to bring the second rook into the game. And my question, at least while we're sitting in this position and trying to foresee the future, is does that actually lead to anything for white? Can you really try to play for an advantage from there?
This is the big question. In this structure, this very symmetrical structure, which can happen from the exchange variation in the French, as we see, it can happen from the Petrov variation. And I've been playing this structure with white for quite some time, and it was always a big question how to get advantage. But sometimes you don't even think about advantage. You're just trying to get a position where it's clearly you're pressing the opponent. And I think this part is very important, especially in a match, that the players want to press the other one. Even if they cannot win, the games there are a lot of games played still together with today's game, 10 games, 10 classical games they are going to be playing if it's going to be very tight all the way. And it means that they want to win the match at the end. They don't want necessarily to win the match in game 5 or out of whatever less number of games. The idea is to press the other one, to make the other one uncomfortable, to make the other one understand that I'm going to give the surprises to you. And you always have to be ready to adapt yourself to my new ideas. And this is what we've seen by Gukesh also, that in every game he comes up with all kinds of different ideas. And this means that he can exhaust his opponent. And this is really the match is so. This is why it is so special, because you play with the same color every second day, and you have the same basic question: what are you going to be playing against the same opponent with the same preparation, which he did in several months? And this is a question: how can Gukesh? I think this is the main aim for him. He wants to get a position where it's uncomfortable for black, and he has to make a choice, spends energy, spends the time, and even if it's a draw but he can press, it means a lot. And this is also interesting, like yesterday in the press conference, Gukesh was saying some very interesting sentence which caught my ear very much when he said, talking about the game, how it went. And at the end he finished that I was it was a solid game. And I even towards the end, I had some chances to press better. And this, I don't know what to take there, because the end of the game yesterday, I didn't feel there is not too much to press, but I felt that when Gukesh played f5, somehow he wanted to give the impression that it's equal, it's going to be a draw, but I have the upper hand. I'm just a little bit. If I want, I can maybe kind of press it, but it was not in reality. But he said something like that, and I think this is one of the main goals for the moment, to get position where he can press, where he can show that I'm maybe the one who can play more for something, not even for a win, but just to make you really uncomfortable. So I think this is the big question in this position. How can white play that it's uncomfortable for black, and he has to find some accurate moves?
Well, we're talking about, how Gukesh, he wants to make his opponent uncomfortable. But as I look at these players on the camera, and typically we try to avoid talking or reading too much into body language, I think it's Gukesh who feels uncomfortable here. It's clear that he did not expect the Anish Giri recommended king takes e7 in the opening. So I'm going to go ahead. I haven't even done this once, but I have the control. I'm going to give that an exclamation point. I think it was just a really good opening understanding, preparation from Ding to bring this king out into the center. Because as we look at these two players, it was Gukesh who decided to play the exchange French. We're thinking, oh, he's the one landing the surprise, and maybe he can try to pose some serious problems to Ding, unlike game one where the French worked in the Chinese player, the world champion's favor. But look at Gukesh. He's not moving. He's spending time. As you yourself said, Judith, it's like the type of position that we don't often expect from Gukesh this early in the game. Very versatile player, can play anything under the sun, as anyone at the top really, they are well-rounded, as Gukesh said in the press conference yesterday. But this doesn't look like a player who's thrilled to be in this position, and it's because he needs to find a way to press, to get that psychological advantage, because if he doesn't, psychologically, I think that Ding is the one who is really benefiting from the situation. He's the one who played king takes e7. He's like, I don't fear any of this stuff. I've come well ready and well prepared, and I do not have a problem with my king in the center. So Judith, maybe now would be a time to just sort of analyze some specifics, try to talk about some of the details here, because Gukesh is really working hard to figure out what move to play and what strategy to operate with.
Yes, I'm completely ready to dive into some concrete ideas. At the same time, I want to say I'm not happy at all that the way Gukesh decided to play it, because I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. I mean, what's the point to play exchange variation? Let's face it, king e7 is a very logical move, what was played. So I'm actually kind of surprised if this is a surprise for Gukesh. And indeed, what you say, that it seems like maybe Gukesh is the one who got surprised by Ding's reaction. It is not Gukesh's style to play e takes d5. And you know what it reminds me? When I played with Garry Kasparov, actually it was our last game in 2002, when we played the big rapid match between Russia and the rest of the world. And I was playing against Garry. And he had a very, very strange idea, which he got the punishment for as well. He decided to play completely against his style, and he decided to play Berlin. And it is so much against his style to get swap of the queens already in move 7 or 8 and play an endgame-ish, well, basically it's a middle game, the Berlin. And I won the game. But I felt that it was kind of an easy game because I just played, developed, and I pressed, and actually it happened to be that I won the game. And sometimes it happens that players choose not the right opening for themselves. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's not the end of the world to play e takes d5. It is just so surprising seeing Gukesh choosing this line that. I mean, if we go into some concrete lines here, Gukesh is a very concrete player, right? We cannot deny that. All of us know that whatever position he's in, he's going to start calculating. Like here, probably. Should I go b3? And then he starts calculating lines. Should I play rook e1 and starts calculating concrete lines? Or bishop g5, then he starts going on. Bishop e6, knight d2, knight d7, rook e1, h6, bishop h4, whatever. But he goes on with the lines. And this position is very stable for black. Just the structure itself, it is very stable for both players. So I don't know, kind of, I'm still under the shock, but probably you feel it.
First of all, Judith, I want to say what a boss you are, because you're like, oh, this time I beat Gary and it felt like an easy game. And I know you have, of course, the utmost respect for Gary. I mean, such a legend, one of the GOATs of the game. But I hear your point, ultimately, that even the best players in the world, even world champions, sometimes they pick an opening that isn't right for them. And they have studied it before, they've played it from the other side, whatever it may be, it just might not be true to their style. And for Gukesh right now, I mean, we're watching him deep in the think tank, and he, in the press conference yesterday, was compared to a young Fabiano Caruana, who is often considered like the calculator. Like when he gets a position, he can work through it as if he is a machine and just calculate all the way towards the end. But there are positions where intuition, feel, just strategizing and maneuvering are the theme. And it's not that he can't do it. Of course, Gukesh, he can play all sorts of types of chess, but he turned Ding into the chill guy. I saw Ding at the board sort of not hunched over, but leaning to the side as if he had not a worry in the world. And now Ding has left the board, and it's Gukesh who might feel all alone at this moment. And there he is. There's Ding, and he's just swatting away his problems. He said, yeah, this French defense, no worries. And, Ding, I think this actually is a positive moment for him, Judith, because if he can find that stability that he hasn't had with the black side, first game he did win, that's great, but it was one of those topsy-turvy games, a little nerve-wracking. And then in the third game, he played great, but then at the start, finding all the best moves, and then lost it. And here it's like, okay, I'm very, very solid, and Ding is back. Rook e1 check played. That was the principal approach, as you called for it, Judith, and we'll see how quickly Ding follows up these moments, because king f8 is possible, getting the king out of check. Bishop e6 is a very natural move to block the check, but after bishop e6, there could be knight g5 jumps. And so Ding does not want imbalances. We have a fully symmetrical pawn structure. Black's pawn a little extended on c4, but yeah, we just saw a rook trade, and pieces coming off the board. That doesn't mean we're just going to sign the score sheets and the players will agree to a draw, but we are having no fireworks, at least for the time being.
No, we don't see fireworks, and sorry to say, Robert, I have the feeling that we have to wait for another round probably for fireworks. Because it's not going to be this game, but it's going to be interesting, because now I believe bishop g5 is the move. And because if black can play bishop e6, h6, knight d7, or knight c6, black is just having a fantastic position. And it's probably even black who we would say that we would pick, because it's just very pleasant. But now white has to be very sharp and trying to take the advantage. He just played bishop g5, is the most obvious move, immediately threatening to capture on f6 and grab the h7 pawn after all. So black will not allow this, and if black has to play knight bd7, it means that he has to block the bishop, and then already white can bring the knight to d2 most likely, and then rook e1. So it seems like now it's the moment where white can take the initiative, and so this is now the moment where it starts to get interesting. Also, knight e4, we can say that it would be a logical reaction by black. But I believe that after knight e4, the first thing I would want to see, is it possible to take bishop takes e4, capture, and after that to play knight d2, attacking both of the pawns, the e4 and the c4. And then if white can win the pawn, that's important. So this is a very important thing, that if black cannot go knight e4. So knight bd7 is played, it's on the board, and I'm expecting very clearly knight bd2 in the next move. So the question is whether can black consolidate his pieces in the next 3 to 5 moves?
My first take is the answer should be yes, and Ding's speed, I think, gives me more confidence in the harmony of black's setup. I know the bishop on c8 is unhappy. Gukesh, he is examining the board and trying to come up with a plan that, can give him some chances. We know he's a very ambitious player, but Ding, he is cool as a cucumber right now, just really locked in, using that repertoire. I know Anish has been posting recap videos. I'm sure he's already made his, and he'll just say, go look at my course. That's all you need to do. I've already written the book on this opening. But John, I know you're out there. You've been watching this opening. It's not the drama necessarily that we thought we'd get, maybe a sharper game. But are you as surprised as we are to see the players in a queenless position, also one pair of rooks off the board, and just one open file, and not too much, at least direct action for the moment?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Robert. I think I'm used to seeing the queens off the board and playing these queenless middle games that can still produce really exciting positions, but when you have the rooks off the board as well in a symmetrical pawn structure like this, it does make that significantly less likely. So it's particularly interesting that Gukesh has chosen to go for the exchange. Ironically, at my very not lofty level of chess, I play the exchange myself because my coach once said to me, we need to really sort out your opening repertoire, John, but we're going to leave the French for last because your results in the exchange have been pretty good. I beat up a couple of 2,000 players with it, but unfortunately that's because you have to sit tight till move 50 and wait for a mistake to come in. It's not the most exciting and not the most ambitious. So it's interesting that Gukesh is choosing it as a weapon here. I would never have expected it. One fun thing, though, is that this game is following a recent European game between Damjanovic and Kramer. And the reason why this is interesting is because that game was only played 12 days ago. So there is a bit of me here wondering whether or not Gukesh and Ding are aware that this has been played in recent history. Judith, you expressed a lot of surprise, of course, that this opening, okay, we're not expecting it necessarily at a World Championship or even today, but do you think maybe they're aware that it's been played elsewhere fairly recently?
I'm pretty sure that they are aware of it because already for more than a decade, 2 decades, we are always checking new games, and especially on a pretty good and talented players. So it is something that they are following, and but here what will be very important, how much Gukesh will understand the position, and of course it becomes concrete because now he played knight bd2, so now white is in development, in advantage in development, and so maybe Gukesh will be able to have a position where he can press.
Okay, well, we will find out whether or not there is the ability to press here moving into the middle game. Maybe we've seen some improvements in the future continuations on the board here. For now, we are moving towards our first break of the day. But before we do, we'd like to remind you that we have an excellent collaboration with the Chess Up team, because as seen on Shark Tank, Chess Up have returned with Chess Up 2. It's an electronic board that combines the best of online and over-the-board chess. It's got built-in Wi-Fi and, importantly, chess.com compatibility. It carries all the convenience of online gaming, like access to millions of players in the online chess community, without losing your unique experience and feel for over-the-board chess. So if you fancy it, this Black Friday savings week, you can get $70 off your Chess Up 2. Just head over to go.chess.com/chessup2 or use !chessup in chat to unlock this offer and take your game to the next level. In the meantime, we are hopping into our first break of the day. The position is very much equal, but plenty of life left in it yet. We'll see if the players choose to swap off more pieces after this break.
This is chess. Chess is an experience. The excitement, the joy, the devastation, the undeniable drive to play again and again. Chess is an experience that's meant to be shared. What if you could experience chess in a completely new way? On a real chessboard with the power of AI at your fingertips. This is Chess Up 2. Take everything you love about playing on chess.com and experience it on a real chessboard. Play a blitz match against a random online opponent. Conquer the bot you've been stuck on for months. Or challenge a friend halfway across the world. Chess Up 2 is always ready and always connected with built-in Wi-Fi. Never miss a move with full piece recognition. And review all your games right on chess.com. Chess Up 2 is more than a chessboard. It's a chess trainer. If you're new to chess, Chess Up will teach you. If you already know how to play, Chess Up will teach you how to really play. With patented AI assistance, you can balance a match between players of any skill level. Or hone your skills against one of the built-in AI coaches. The makers of Chess Up 2 are the same team behind the original Chess Up. The best-selling smart chessboard in the world. So whether you're a beginner who wants to learn and improve while you play, or a chess pro who wants to go deeper into the world of chess, experience Chess Up 2 and level up your game.
This is the Google Pixel 9 with Gemini. And this is Dan, suggesting some places to meet up and watch the game tonight. But you know what's better than a list of places? Knowing how close those places are. Which is why you're just going to ask Gemini to put these places on a map. Whoa, how's that for teamwork?
This December, the world's top chess minds clash in the heart of New York City at the Fide World Rapid and Blitz Championship. Witness world number one Magnus Carlsen and other stars from across the globe. Rapid and Blitz, chess in its most thrilling form, unpredictable and unforgettable. Fast moves, tactics and blunders, and moments that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness the pinnacle of chess excitement. Get your tickets now at worldrapidandblitz.fide.com.
The Fide World Chess Championship tradition goes back to 1886, when Wilhelm Steinitz became the first official world chess champion after defeating Johannes Zukertort as the first player to achieve 10 wins. Nearly 150 years later, the core tradition endures. The challenger must beat the reigning champion to claim the throne. 18-year-old Gukesh secured his place by winning the candidates, and now gets a shot at winning the title in a head-to-head battle against the reigning champion Ding. They will face each other in up to 14 classical games that can last up to 7 or even 8 hours, with a time control of 120 minutes for the first 40 moves, followed by 30 minutes for the rest of the game with 30 seconds increment added from move 41 and on. Only one game is played per day, with rest days after game 3, 6, 9, and 12. The player who first scores 7.5 points or more wins the title. If the match is tied 7-7 after 14 games of classical chess, the match goes to playoff. Regardless of how the match is decided, it's bound to be a treat for chess fans worldwide.
We're back with more of the action from round 5 of the Fide World Chess Championship live from Sentosa in Singapore. The world champion Ding Liren and the challenger Gukesh Dommaraju currently locked horns in battle in what looks like a fairly quiet middle game so far, with more pieces coming off the board. The question will be whether there are any twists and turns to make this game potentially spice up in the coming moves. Grandmasters Judith Polgar, Grandmaster Robert Hess, I leave that task in your very capable hands.
Thank you, John. We have a nice view here of Ding Liren, the world chess champion, as he takes on his young challenger, Gukesh Dommaraju. Gukesh aiming to be the youngest world champion, the unified world champion in history. So, Judith, we have seen a tame opening. We are in this position, 14 moves in. Now Ding is spending some time just trying to play the accurate continuations. But you and I were both surprised, given Gukesh's nature, being a calculator, liking ambitious choices. Instead, the queens are off. We're into a position where there is only one open file. It's not exactly clear where winning attempts are going to come from, but we know that for Ding, he wants to remain solid here, and that's why he is spending his time at this moment.
Yes, in this position, there are not going to be very concrete and sharp things for some time. At the same time, time element in chess, it is very important. How fast can you bring your pieces into the center, into open files? And now Gukesh will be able to do that, because next move is definitely very inviting for white, whatever black is going to be playing probably, to bring his rook to e1 and then very quickly occupy the square e5 with his knight. And if he can do that, then there is a good chance that it's not so easy to develop with the black pieces. So right now, Ding is thinking, I believe, how to develop his pieces. His a8 rook is not developed yet. His c8 bishop is not developed yet. And the two knights, d7 and f6, they are protecting each other. The d6 bishop, of course, stands optimally, the best place in the position for black to have the bishop there, controlling the e5 for temporary time, because knight e5 will be something that it's coming. So the question is for black, I believe, first of all, should he be playing h6 and asking the bishop there, where are you going? Which probably will not be moving away, but white is having the intermediate move, giving a check on e1 with the rook. Then the question is with the king, where are you going to be moving? Most likely, or at first, king f8 seems to be the more logical move, because in that sense, when the c8 bishop is clearing a way for the rook from a8, then the a8 rook can be playing to the open file. So this is the first question, whether is he going to be playing h6, trying to push away the bishop, or is he going to play immediately b6, try to develop with the bishop from c8, or what else can he be going for? There's not so much of an option for black, but I feel that it can be inconvenient right now.
I'm with you, and I think Ding also agrees, and that's why he is spending time in this position. And I want to just kind of overall picture mention a few things. That rook e1 check is like pre-movable. You know that's coming. But the good thing for black is if that rook does come to the center, the only open file, that encourages black to play on the queen side, because the rook on a1 is actually annoying for black in many positions. If white were to play b3 and black plays b5, then you get an a4. Oftentimes these positions can get out of hand if you're not careful, because black lacks development with this rook and this bishop. So h6 to me, Judith, I think we now can bring up an analysis board. That does feel like a good decision, because in many positions I feel like black doesn't mind a ruined pawn structure on the king side, but you will mind if the h7 pawn drops at the end. So h6 takes away that issue for the rest of the game, or at least for the foreseeable future. And if we do bring our king to f8, I think the bishop is going to retreat to h4. And now the question, Judith, is do you play g5? Or, as I was saying with the rook on e1, maybe now's the time for black to just expand on the queen side, because white's attention is distracted or focused in the center. Maybe black can say, now is the time to press forward on the flank that you just vacated.
I fully agree with you that b5 is something to look for black, because it's a very energetic move. It has a plan for later to play b4, but not only that, just to gain space and make space for the bishop to develop. But also I was thinking that maybe knight h5 can be an interesting try, with the idea that black can play in the next move g5 and get rid of the black square bishop. Also, on f4, it's a nice spot for the knight. There is another idea also for black. Instead of knight h5, after h6, bishop h4, there is a new idea, weakness for white on f4. So maybe bishop f4 is also something to consider. Though probably after bishop f4 is also interesting, because white cannot go knight e5 because of the d2 knight has to be protected. And it means that I stop white from making very active move for the moment. And g5 I can be playing later on, and knight h5. But so bishop f4 can be an unpleasant move, kind of. And white cannot go g3 to push me away, because after that already bishop d2, and the h4 bishop gets in trouble after g5. So probably after bishop f4, white's best move is to play bishop g3 and kind of exchanging the pair of bishop. But when we change pieces in such a position, we are getting less and less tension in the game. For example, knight g4 is something to consider it right here. It's not unusual that black, for example, is not so active, but he's going to be playing knight e8, for example, bringing the other knight to f6 and the e8 knight to d6, for example. It's true that the e5 square will be giving away, but it's there anyway for white. So there are some alternatives to play with black, and I think this is what Ding is thinking about. He knows exactly that if he plays the accurate moves, there shouldn't be a big problem for black, and it is very close to equalization, or it is an equal position. But definitely he has to understand it very well, and he has the time, so there is nothing against it that he spends a lot of time at this point, because it is a very important moment, I think, right here for black.
Yeah, and sometimes, little pawn pushes, you really have to weigh correctly if the inclusion is worth it, if it's beneficial, or if it puts a pawn on a worse square. h6 is such a natural move. You attack a bishop. You also get out of the sight of this bishop on c2, which is important in many positions, because the sight of double pawns on the f-file is not the worst thing in the world. In fact, having the pair of bishops is very valuable in these types of endgames where you have play on both sides of the board, but you definitely wouldn't want that if the h7 pawn were to drop. That feels like something that you forget about it for one turn, and then you really remember when your opponent throws their h pawn, the remaining pawn, later, just to go to the other side. So h6 That's my first instinct as well, Judith. I think Ding, if he were playing a game of chess, he would have played it instantly, but he is just making sure that maybe that tempo is important and he should immediately play a pawn push to b5 if that's where his attention takes him, and maybe play b4. So many different ideas. It's not about the individual moves. We keep kind of harping on this point, but Ding is trying to come up with the correct idea and execute it in the right order.
Yes, exactly. But I think h6, I just don't see the drawback of that. I think only black can win with the fact that if the bishop is moving away from g5 to h4. And you're saying that, yeah, it's not such a big deal necessary to have a double pawn, double f pawn. But somehow many people don't like double pawns, you know? It just looks ugly. And it can be unpleasant. And to tell you the truth, I don't even remember games in this kind of position where, let's say, they ended up, or not so many games from the Petrov or this, where someone played h6 and after that moved away and allowed bishop f6, gf6. Though it doesn't seem to be too bad at all, because after the exchange on f6, first of all, black will never have a problem to see a knight on e5, right? So that is something very, very good for black. At the same time, having the double pawns, sometimes it has no problem, but some players just hate to have double pawns.
It's funny, Judith. I feel like when I play, I hate having double pawns, but when I commentate, I'm like, oh, that's your problem. You deal with it. I don't have to suffer any of the consequences. And I think just to sort of show people, I'm going to quickly put a variation. We're not expecting it to happen, but just what that looks like, because it could be hard to visualize, that if these double pawns appear, one of the main points is that the e5 square is under control. This would have been a suboptimal move order from black, but you take away the e5 square. But when you have double pawns, always look at the square in front of the double pawns. And here it's f5, and white can reroute this knight f1, knight up to e3, and then have great control of that square. And the reason why we talk about squares in front of double pawns is how do you actually cover squares best? You use a pawn, because a knight or a bishop isn't going to be within distance of a pawn, as it will capture a more valuable piece. But when you have double pawns, you cannot fight for the square in the same way, and that's why it's kind of ill-advised just to automatically accept the double pawns. And here you would pay a price because black's pawn structure also is not ideal. This d5 pawn, we talked about it earlier, it's the base of a chain. It's actually quite easy to approach that, and knight f1, knight e3 is one of the simple ways to do so. So we're talking sort of broad strokes. I'm not encouraging Ding to double his own pawns here, but actually maybe some variations, there will be a time and place, especially if there's a knight on e5 already, where you take back with a tempo against that knight. So it's sort of a big picture. I don't expect Ding to make a move like knight f8. It would be bad. He knows that. He is not going to do that. But Judah, I think, as we kind of were highlighting before, h6, it feels automatic. So what else do you feel like is an alternative here? Because, I don't know, I really see that as the move in the position.
Well, it's king f8 is also something to consider immediately, and wait white if he's going to go rook e1, because after king f8, rook e1, already b5 is as you pointed out not long time ago, that when the rook is on e1, b5 can be played in maybe with better circumstances. But of course, black has to be aware of different kind of ideas. Rook e1, knight e5, b3, trying to break up the center, and also it's very important for black to be alert about the possible unexpected things. Though there is not too many unexpected things in this position because the ideas are quite limited. But also, for example, at some point, I think black should be aware of it, maybe even bishop a4 at some point, being very concrete, but I think that should be pretty slow. So yeah, h6 is the most logical move, but we can also think about it, what happens if black just develops to play Though I'm not sure. Can black play b5 immediately?
We have the ability to use the analysis board, so let's do that. b5. This is one of those moves where you gain space, but you also bring your pawns closer to the enemy. So not at this moment, but a4 in a timely fashion can be painful. So yeah, b5, I guess what would the potential drawback be? Rook e1 and knight e5?
Well, after a4, I think for the moment black can play b4, and he can be quite happy about it for this pawn structure. So I would not play a4. I would indeed think about rook e1 first, or knight e5 possible as well immediately. But let's say check first, very logical. King goes to f8, and then knight e5. So this is kind of seems to be the optimal position for white. And this is a question whether what is this for black? What happens if black just plays bishop b7? Can he play bishop b7, or bishop b7 is already a blunder because knight takes d7, knight takes d7, and bishop can take on h7 because g6 trapping the bishop is not possible to bishop h6 mate.
Not a checkmate you see every day, but really important for people who castle queenside, because oftentimes you think that pawn is untouchable and the king is sort of in a castle queenside position, and then you get checkmated like this and you regret everything you've just done.
Well, of course, taking a pawn on h7, it's always tricky, as Fischer took it against Spassky in, what was it, game 1 or game 2?
Game 1, right? He forfeited
game 1,
game 2.
I think, yeah. Game 1, he took on h2 and got a big surprise over there. But, so this is why when it comes to something concrete, this is why we talk about h6, right? That in a very unexpected way, that pawn can be grabbed. So let's go back. And if we go back just a few moves before, like b5, exactly, knight e5. So bishop b7 is not possible for concrete reasons. But maybe h6 here is possible, and there is nothing wrong with that. But then already white is not going to be going to h4, but probably white is going to f4. And immediately threatening with some tactics because the d6 bishop is under attack. So these are the reasons why it's very important right now for Ding to think about it, to play h6 in advance immediately, or he has time for playing it in a later stage.
And Judith, this type of position, I would say that if there was no evaluation bar to the left of the board, I would think that black's almost lost. Like this, how this position looks, because you're so far behind in terms of that rook on e8 is not in the center. There are all sorts of tactics. You never want to take. You can't take on e5 with a knight, of course. You lose control and you get forked. If you take with a bishop, then it's 2 bishops advantage for white on an open board. That's bad news. But I'm going to look because I don't really see what the move is. Bishop b8. Come on. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's a typical thing. It's a typical engine thing that you think as a human that, well, after bishop f4, it's this huge advantage for white. And then the engine says, cold-blooded, bishop b8, no problem for black.
And look at this, Judith. Knight f1, if you're trying to go for this d5 pawn eventually. Knight g8 is one of the top moves. Knight g8 is what's recommended. So you're just putting all your pieces, kind of Fischer random style, chess 960, freestyle, whatever you want to call it these days, just putting them on the back rank, and somehow black is just fine.
But this is the secret in this position, these type of positions. I had quite a few games like that I think I have a great development and fantastic. I have my knight on e5. And in these positions, I played with Yusupov, who was an expert in these kind of structures in the Petrov and others. They just go back knight g8. They go back knight e8. And everything is protected. And then within 2-3 moves, we simplify the position and it's equal. So it is very typical that even when you reach knight to e5, king on f8 is just the best spot for the king because of knight g8 possibilities, because knight e8 is protected, because quite a few things. And And this can be done by black because the structure is so strong and so healthy that these quiet passive moves, temporary passive moves, it can be afforded by black. Because once it regroups to e7, black can go f6, king f7, and there were so many games where you see these kind of regroupings, playing f6, king f7, and later on black comes out with other pieces, simplifies, and it becomes a draw. But this is the big question, whether, how and when they can do that.
It's funny, Judith, because you mentioned the legendary Artur Yusupov and so many luminaries of the game. They're just so good at retreating their pieces because they understand that that's what is necessary to take a step backwards before moving on elsewhere. So this position, though, if Ding Liren is calculating and he's trying to visualize the future, this is not what you want. And even I see the engine saying it's just slightly better for white. Nobody wants this. And compare this position that we have on the analysis board. I'm just going to go back to the alternative. When you play h6 right away and you get rook e1 check, king f8, bishop h4, like even if you play b5 here, it looks better because your pawn's already on h6. So after knight e5, there is no ability to win an h7 pawn. Bishop b7 not forced, by the way, at the moment, for everyone wondering. And your knight h5 idea still comes to mind, to play g5 next. Like, why would you wait a turn to allow the bishop to f4, which is clearly a better diagonal, versus kicking it right away? And it may not seem like the most important thing in the world, but sometimes it is essential to force a piece to a worse diagonal or a worse square for the time being, and then proceed with your ultimate plan, which is b5 and maybe an eventual b4 if you get the time for it.
Yes, and here, for example, if black continues bishop b7, white can also play bishop g3, but I believe after bishop g3, bishop e7 can be played. Mm-hmm. Which after maybe bishop f5, putting pressure, trying to force black to capture on e5, so white can be taking it possibly with the pawn.
But I guess they're knight h5 again.
Then knight h5, yeah. I have a great square with the knight on d4, but this is too much. No, this is too optimistic. So maybe bishop f5 is not the best move.
It's frustrating when the direct plans, attacking a piece is the wrong move, but it also actually goes to show, which is very important for me, is that at some point black can and will take on e5, because in many positions, and just to sort of go back here, taking on e5 with the bishop, nobody really wants to do that, giving away the bishop pair. Taking with the knight will never really be a thing, because you walk into a fork, and yes, for everyone watching, there is a temporary pin down here, but that's not going to do the trick, because once you play a move like, say, knight to f3, you protect your rook, and then white will win one of these minor pieces. So taking on e5, not available often, but when it can happen, it can be very dangerous because white can forget about that possibility sometimes.
Yes, indeed. So, but bishop e7 is good for that reason also. That
yes.
Black sometimes wants to exchange on e5. So these are the alternatives, and these are the outcomes which can happen after h6 or without h6. Black plays b5. Of course, king f8, as we discussed, that's also possible. But for the moment, I believe, though I don't know, can black play knight h5 just for the fun of it to try it?
Starting with knight h5 or including h6?
No, knight h5 immediately.
Is h7 hanging in some of these positions because of check and that same little checkmate? Taking
I was thinking here to play g6.
Okay, check.
Knight g7, and I thought I will be playing knight f6 next.
Ah, and I'll play knight g5 to respond to that. So, okay, knight g5 to start with, maybe, just to get...
Knight f6.
Oy, 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 what a mess this is. Are you going to play knight g4? Ah.
You never know.
You've forced white to contort himself in all sorts of knots, and now it feels very weird with bishop f4 and knight g4. And I see the evaluation bar saying that white is better, but I mean, this is scary stuff to trap your own bishop. As you mentioned, Bobby Fischer learned that lesson in his World Championship match against Boris Spassky.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting position, how to get out, how to rescue those bishops from there, or if you cannot rescue them, how to continue, right?
What a very weird setup. I guess knight g4 is such a strong threat. I'll deal with that first. And if bishop f4, I do have knight over to f3, and I'm holding everything on for the moment, but I don't feel super confident or comfortable with it.
I just thought with black to play bishop d7, to play slowly.
I wasn't expecting you just to calmly sacrifice a pawn and then just move on from there, but I see your ultimate point that, I mean, this is a permanent problem. So even trading rooks will be possible for black because white in some positions will be playing down a minor piece. So for everyone watching, you're up a pawn as white. You grabbed h7, but later on, that could be a problem that your bishop is so sidelined over there that then black can focus on the queen side, and I think that's exactly what you're indicating, is you can even just play down the b file, and white's pieces are so awkward.
And I want to remind you that we have this evil bar on the side, and we are still looking and analyzing this position, partly because it shows that white has a clear advantage. And I think none of us see really why is that true, right? Or do you see it why white is better?
I don't see it. No, I see that white's up a pawn, but I'm scared because the bishop's trapped on h7.
So the reason I'm saying this, because the players don't have this. Nobody is standing next to them or giving a hint that you have a good position. So search, go, calculate because you have a good position. But contrary, we don't know. And they don't know. So you can give up analyzing and go further in any of the lines because you just have your intuition and you say, no, this cannot be good, or I don't see why is it good. Otherwise, the people would be standing there and saying, yeah, there is something I should analyze and go back and forth and look and find. But we have h6 on the board.
I actually want to kind of echo your sentiments there, because I think one of the keys at the higher levels of chess, and even when you're starting out, is you need to be skeptical. And oftentimes beginners, they question their own moves, but forget to question their opponent. So let's say you're just starting out and you're worried, oh, am I going to blunder this? Am I going to do that? Sometimes your opponent also blunders. So don't just trust your opponent. You have to calculate, and there is not infinite time unless you're playing daily chess without any sort of time limit. But for these players, right, that h7 pawn, maybe it could have been grabbed. The engine backs it up, but I think most of us, we're like, no way, I'm not getting my bishop trapped over there. In many ways, doing a Bobby Fischer on the chessboard is a great thing, because there's so many awesome attacking games and some fantastic strategic decisions and beating the best player 6-0 in matches. But then there's that famous bishop takes h2, where it's like, okay, don't bite off more than you can chew. But I think what I'm trying to get at, Judah, is that you have to calculate it. Like, you don't just want to throw it away and pretend like it doesn't exist. You really want to dive deeply when you have the time. And that was a great position for people to analyze on their own, to say, how would white extricate that bishop? Is that even possible? What's the deal there? And why would white be better? What can we do to try to sort of improve white's position? Or is it going to backfire? And you can even, sit at home on a board and have somebody, if you're working with a training partner, look in engine to see how to respond. But those type of positions are really valuable for players trying to improve their own chess, because it looks like it's something that's impossible, but always be skeptical. There may be something in it.
Well, to be critical and be self-critical is one of the key elements in growth for a chess player. And this is why the players have to always be very critical and analytical about their games to understand themselves better and to be able to avoid the same mistakes and look for new opportunities, new ideas. Now, while we are talking, I'm watching the diagram on the screen, the position, and I thought, maybe it's a smart thing by Gukesh, not giving rook e1 check and still keeping the tension. And his idea might be, like, one of the ideas could be that if black plays bishop f4, I think we touched this after rook e1, king f8, bishop h4, just as an option for black. But I think here it would be not very good for black. And the reason is because the bishop stands, bishop stands great on d6 when black plays b5 And after a4, he can go b4. So if now bishop f4 happens on the board, then b3 would be already much more powerful, because if black gives up the center with cb3, we don't have to discuss, because that's a clear game for white, right? A takes b3. Suddenly the a1 rook is very active. Also c4 is as an option for white, breaking in the center. Bishop can improve its position, bishop d3. So we don't talk about this right now, but I want to point out that after b3, the most logical continuation for black is b5, which after a4 can be the next move. And a6 is not possible because of the a5, right? There is a pin. So after a4, black can be maybe in kind